Hey everybody, welcome back. This is SaunaSpace IG Live, and today we are really excited because we're going to have Dr. Steve Stabs on with us. He's been using the product for a couple of years now, I think.
Yeah, Steve has been using it for a couple of years, and here he is right now, so We'll have him here on a second. He's based in South Africa.
Oh, hey Shelly.
He's a really interesting guy. Let's see, we're getting our screen recording going, so we'll have everything recorded just in case. But yeah, we're excited to pop in and check in with him and see how he's going. I know that he recently got a Faraday upgrade, so he's currently using that, and he's been actually a wholesaler of ours, one of a couple wholesalers, and so he's down there in South Africa, and we're going to get him on and talk about sauna, talk about what he's doing. He's a really interesting guy, really smart guy, really well read, and really into biohacking. And he's been supporting us actually for a while. Here he is right now with the red light on his face. How you doing, Steve?
Good, and you, Brian? Thanks for having me on,
Thank
Crystal.
you. I'm happy to be alive.
Tell us more about that comment.
Yeah, and I feel like lucky to be alive. We're getting ready to go to this show next week. It's the Biohacker Show. It's going to be the first live conference we'll have gone to since before the pandemic, and that's in a week. And I'm pinching myself because it hasn't been canceled or delayed or whatever.
And you're going to be speaking on Friday at the event.
Yeah, and I'm giving a little breakout talk, Steve, on Friday. That'll be really fun.
Awesome. What are you speaking on other than SaunaSpace?
I'll be speaking about, the talk is called Transforming Our Synthetic World Through Naturalism. So I'll be talking about kind of poisons and the problems we have around us and sort of the solution is within our grasp. You know, it's not going back to a Stone Age type of environment. It's transforming what we have. It's making our synthetic world more natural, more naturalistic, more in alignment with this ancestral biology we have that hasn't changed.
Sure, sounds interesting, and that's one of the questions that I have in terms of detox and looking at all these, products that are in our water, that are in our food, all these PCBs, PFCs, parabens, phthalates, all these things. And I think you're probably it would be good to share on that, because I think it's a common question that I get from the Made to Thrive community is, what happens when we sweat, and do you really detox? And mainstream media has been quite aggressive that there's a lot of sort of quacks out there saying that you detox and it's not possible, and you got your livers and your kidneys and your lungs that are really good at detoxing. But I think it would be great for you to share some light on that, because there are, I think I was listening to a podcast, in the last 50 years, I think there's 70,000 new toxic substances that our bodies are engaging with. And it's sort of one of the very foundational sort of themes and pillars of SaunaSpace in terms of making toxic-free materials, making sure that we're not using synthetic sort of irritants on our skin. And so I really want to hear more. I want to ask some questions. You've done the preparation already. So I think we might just grill you a little bit on the detox, sort of factors of SaunaSpace and infrared sauna.
Well, he's just turning the table on us. I was going to be grilling you, Steve. But, okay. Well, let's talk about it a little bit. The human body has it has five detoxification systems, but there's three that are primary. You named two of them, urinary and bowels. We either urinated or defecated out. But the third one is the skin, is through sweating. So it's the renal system, the bowel system, and then the skin. And those are the three primary systems that we use to rid our bodies of poisons of all types. The more we study sauna and study passive sweating, the more we confirm that it appears that you can excrete almost any poisonous substance via sweating. And that includes mercury, which we used to think was only excreted by the bowels. And that increasingly includes pretty much every petrochemical and plastic substance that's made from petroleum that's out there. And like you said, there's just every year there's 10,000 more petrochemicals that are synthesized. And so that's a thing where it's just ever present. We're always being exposed to petrochemicals, whether probably the biggest forms are like herbicides and pesticides, what we use in agriculture, because it gets into the groundwater and we're drinking it in and we're eating it in our food. But increasingly,
and some of it aerosolizes too, so then
some
it
of
goes
it,
up into the atmosphere and
like
then comes down
glyphosate,
with the rain
and Roundup and stuff. But also just the information age is really a race over, that's kind of a political side of things, but the race over rare earth minerals and the need for rare earth minerals like lithium and all these other things that we use to make all these modern technologies. In order to extract those, we're mining the earth and we're releasing a lot of heavy metals and other things that we never had a high level of concentration or exposure to, but we do now. And we're just really not built for that. So we do live in a totally toxic tidal wave of a world. But back to elimination, the skin is one of the 3 primary ways that you rid the body of poisons. It's only when peeing it out or pooping it out or sweating it out fails you that your body has to rely on the immune system to defend itself, whether it's the initial immune response with T cells and sort of the attacker white blood cells.
or just storing it away.
It can also store it away. But if we're talking about elimination, the immune system uses those attacker T cells initially, and then slowly over time, your immune system can develop antibodies. You can build and design and develop and then increase the level of antibodies, which, like for if we're talking about the current health crisis, COVID, you get an infection and hopefully your primary 3 elimination systems, your urine, your bowels, and your skin and your sweating gets rid of it. But if it doesn't, then your immune system has to attack with T cells and stuff and metabolize it and sort of keep the concentration, the levels, and the damage that it's causing down. And then if you survive and recover from the disease, over about a week later or something, you start to develop antibodies that give you protection, a long time into the future. But really, those last 2 systems are the backstops. They're the emergency systems that you ought not to rely on as much as your primary 3, much more efficient, much more energy, and less energy intensive, less stressful on the body, more effective really, are those 3. And so if we look at those 3, the sweating one is the one we don't use anymore. If we're not in a practice of doing sauna therapy, we're really not doing a routine detoxification, leveraging the largest detoxification organ in the body, which is the skin. And it's a really amazing what it does. And it's interesting that you started with that. When I was driving to work today, I was listening to this show on National Public Radio a little bit about the 9/11 workers. When the World Trade Center towers fell, the 9/11 emergency response workers had an incredible exposure to toxicity when those buildings collapsed, and this huge toxic cloud of dust, of asbestos, and you can imagine millions of tons of building materials, and they're just breathing it in really for weeks. And all of downtown Manhattan, all the first responders, and there's been this really long tail of disease development from that incident. It was initially like inflammation and lung irritation and other sort of short-term lung damage and other toxicity responses. But over time, what we're seeing is really high levels of cancer development. And so what's interesting about that is there's a study or 2 that were performed on the 9/11 workers. And I cite that actually quite often. And they basically they took a group of 9/11 first responders and they had them do the Elrond Hubbard sauna niacin protocol. So this involves doing vigorous 1.5-hour sauna sessions, followed by supplementing with high doses of niacin. And they tracked, they did blood tests for their level of various different petrochemical solvents and chemicals in their blood before and during and after the study. And what they saw in that study was through vigorous daily sauna sessions over a 3 to 6 month period, there was like 90% reduction in all of the chemicals they were testing for. So they were testing for benzene, xylene, a bunch of other weird carcinogenic, nasty chemicals, and the reduction in the blood content, and then indirectly and by the tissue content of the toxins, the detoxification results were tremendous. They were 90 or more percent reduced, in some cases 95% reduced.
And Michael, if you'll write that down so we don't forget to attach that in.
Yeah, we'll put that in the comments. So that's the 9/11 worker studies. And what's really interesting about that study too, if we're talking about that, is, well, why are they taking niacin? So niacin activates the nitric oxide cycle. It causes nitric oxide release, and when you have nitric oxide concentrations increase in the body, it's a first immune responder. It reduces the amount of peroxynitrite, so it has a kind of an antioxidative effect in the body and in the tissues. And really, it's its own conversation we could talk about for a long time, how important nitric oxide is. But what's cool about SaunaSpace is that our sauna uses light therapy on top of the sauna therapy. So we're doing this detox sweating, this sauna therapy, this sweating passively through heat. But we're also adding on top of it near-infrared light therapy, also called mitochondrial stimulation. And one of the 3 direct effects of this near-infrared light hitting your mitochondria is to release nitric oxide out of the cell. So you get that same effect you would get. It's like a natural niacin dose. And so if you're talking about SaunaSpace, using a SaunaSpace sauna, you don't even really need high-dose niacin. You have that therapeutic built in to the sauna therapy, from the same light source.
Fantastic, Brian. But I got a question for you, because I've done a lot of research on detox in preparation for this IG Live. It's a very common question, that people ask me, is detox real? How can I do it? And I'm going to quote from The Guardian, because I thought this was extremely interesting. A professor of complementary medicine, Edzard Ernst, said, there are 2 types of detox. One is respectable and the other isn't. The respectable one is the medical treatment of people with life-threatening drug addictions. The other is the word being hijacked by entrepreneurs, quacks, and charlatans to sell a bogus treatment that allegedly detoxifies your body of toxins you're supposed to have accumulated. This is mainstream media, and I don't want to get into the politics of mainstream media at all, Brian, but this is what a lot of people are believing. This is the narrative that they're believing. This is what their medical doctors are saying. Except if we dive down deep into the research like you have, and then numerous articles on your site, and SaunaSpace in terms of the site, and just looking at the benefits of sauna that you've put there. I've just sent a couple of links now to clients of mine, just reminding them of how important sauna is in this pandemic. But tell us why the mainstream media narrative and meme is that you cannot detox on your own, and in fact sauna doesn't help you detox all these supposed chemicals. How can we change this narrative?
Right, there's many layers and levels to this. It's a complicated question, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm glad you brought it up. I think there's a trend right now towards pushing people towards conventional medical solutions that are primarily pharmacological. So the emphasis in the mainstream media and conventional approaches and the real medicine and what really works is being described as entirely pharmaceutical. And in fact, if you go to Wikipedia right now and you look up alternative medicine, they refer to alternative medicine as belief in supernatural energies and being able to heal the body. But it really obfuscates the reality, and it sort of it's not really just unfair. I think it's really condescending that the consumers, lay people, not people like myself who obsess over the science and stuff, but just people who are interested in their health and they don't know how to read research, or they don't have familiarity with research. Yeah. They're presuming that those people won't look between the lines and look into the details. If you don't have to go to sauna.space and look at some of the select research that I kind of show in my research archive, just go to the PubMed, and we can link to that afterwards. It's a public database of all peer-reviewed articles in the world, and you just type in sauna in there, and you'll find like 2,000 or 3,000 peer-reviewed articles studying humans, not little cell cultures and not theoretical studies, but long-term,
not animals,
and animals as well, but real, or I should say, studies studying humans long-term, and what does sauna do for them? And so if you don't listen to The Guardian or the New York Times, and instead you go ahead and spend some time and actually read the research, you'll see that there are multi-year long-term studies on large-scale studies on thousands of individuals showing incredible health benefit medically, from a medical perspective. So we're talking about reduction in all-cause mortality, which means your risk of dying of all things is reduced when you use sauna every day. And the more you use sauna every day, the more it's proportionally decreased. And that was a 20-year study that followed like 2,000 humans. So that's like really, in terms of double-blind peer-reviewed study, that's very substantial. We're not looking at 1 or 2 people. We're looking at thousands. And so you look further in the research, you see an equally valid level of clinical study in looking at other things. The study I mentioned was a Laucan study that was looking at heart disease and heart attacks, basically. But you also have similarly rigorous studies looking at stroke, Alzheimer's, dementia, and then other things like fibromyalgia and even autoimmune stuff and chronic fatigue. And really across the board, you see significant amelioration of the symptoms that people have. And there, I'm using the medical language there for you. But basically, no matter what it is, sauna seems to help. And I think that comes back to where we started, wherein one of the biggest roots of disease and of dis-ease and of lack of optimal health is poison, and is related to poison in our environment and the degree to which we've been exposed to it, we have it in our bodies. That's not the only thing, but I think that's probably one of the biggest contributing factors nowadays is poison. And the 9/11 worker study, or forget about that, look at in the United States and the world, number 2 cause of death. It's not infectious disease. It's not flu. It's not COVID. It's cancer. And the number 1 is heart disease. And for me, heart disease and cancer and like diabetes, for example. I'm not a healthcare provider, Steve, not like you, and I'm just a curious man. But I look at that and I try to not be hypnotized by these mainstream media, really superficial, I think, condescending articles on this is what the reality is and you need to accept it. I like to understand on my own and decide for myself. And so I'm stepping back and trying not to be hypnotized by everything, but also not be emotionally biased and just look at things as they are. It appears to me that these top causes of death in Western culture are diseases of civilization. They're diseases that are related to our modern lifestyle. And I think one of the biggest changes in our modern lifestyle versus ancestral humans is the degree of poisons we're exposed to, and also our loss of the healthy detoxification habits that our ancestors have. And that's one more thing that is really frustrating about these mainstream media articles and this notion that there's only one certain way to do hyperthermic therapy that's medically approved, and everything else is quackery. If we look at a little bit of ancestral wisdom, we see sauna traditions in every culture on Earth going back thousands of years. And there's a need to use modern observation to empirically validate these things, these ancestral habits. But we have that, and we've just talked about that. And if you look at it, it's there. But coupling the two together, you have ancient wisdom and sort of modern scientific method, both showing the same thing. Sauna is never harmful, and it's always helpful as long as you do it, as recommended. You pop in and you do what's called basically it's an Ormetic stress therapy. So you do sauna for half hour, or you do it for an hour, and then you end your session and you let these intelligent biological built-in healing systems go to work, and then you come back. It's just like food. Food is medicine as well. You can't just eat one thing or eat too much of one thing. There's a balance that's had. But if we maintain that balance and looking ancestrally and sort of reconciling that and marrying that with what we observe through modern scientific method, we see that the two agree, they don't disagree. And the solution is really simple. And I think that's part of where I don't want to get too much into the motives behind why the mainstream narrative is so against natural healing processes. But I think one of them is a profit motive. At the end of the day, natural alternative approaches are affordable. They're way more affordable than these sort of patentable approaches, whether we're talking about what we're talking about, saunas and stuff, and just comparing that to chemotherapy. Chemotherapy in America usually costs $5,000 to $8,000, $5,000 to $8,000 a round, and you do 6 or 8 rounds of that.
There's this reminds me of a book I read. It's called The Organized Mind. I think it was by Daniel Levitin, and it explains how to understand statistics for the lay people, like like most of us, and he does research on, he's a neuroscientist, he does research on the mind, and he talks in his book about how unfortunately a lot of the medical doctors in the world don't understand what the statistics mean, and so they misinterpret them, and they'll recommend things based on their misunderstanding of what that statistic really means. And so and he encourages everyone to take into your own hands to really look into the recommendations, ask the doctor, what's your source on this? Can I look at it? And look at it yourself and see if you agree, because you may not. Or you might. And maybe they're fully, on par, and that's great. But that book was really eye-opening to me. I really loved
that's
it.
such a great, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's really, and that's the struggle here. So we don't have any time for anything. We don't have time for ourselves. And we're overworked here in the West, and it's been very stressful the last year and a half for a lot of people, myself and everybody here. But at the same time, those mainstream narratives rely on our continued ignorance. They rely on us not being willing to look a little bit into the details, into the research itself. And that doesn't mean you have to get lost in it and spend 24 hours a day doing it, but just a little bit of looking at alternative stuff. For example, with what's going on right now with, I'm going to bring it up, with Ivermectin. Ivermectin was used, it's an anti-parasite drug that's been used for 40 years. It was approved by the FDA in 1996. So in the United States, it's been approved by the government powers. How many years is that? That's like 25 or 30 years now. And in fact, it won a Nobel Prize, I think in 2015. So it's very safe, it's very low risk, and it turns out for treatment of COVID-19, it appears to be quite effective. And yet you have right now, what's going on right now is the American Medical Association is trying to ban ivermectin, and there's just a lot of talk about how how it doesn't work, and you have to use the preferred medical approaches are the drug like remdesivir, or the vaccinations that are available under the emergency use authorization. But the other thing to keep in mind is the money. It's cheap. Ivermectin is so cheap. Hydrochloroquine, which has also been totally excoriated by the mainstream media, another thing that's been used for 40 years. And there's regions of the world, Steve, that take hydrochloroquine prophylactically, like where you're from in Africa. That's called the Sunday medicine, or the Sunday pill. And they take that in those areas, and also they take ivermectin in a lot of those areas because they have a lot of exposure to parasites and for hydrochloroquines for malaria. And you don't see or hear about COVID-19 pandemics and deaths, and bodies in the street in Africa, in India, and these various places. And it's a curious thing, In fact,
it is. And I do want to talk about that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that, because I think SaunaSpace and biohacking is really about personal health optimization. It's about, giving people, the option to take accountability of their health. And that's what I love about SaunaSpace. I've got my photo on my desk. I've got my, my sauna at home. It's really empowering people. And I tell this to my audience. I say that doctor, the Latin root of doctor, or the etymology of doctor, is docere, which means teacher. And a lot of doctors need to teach their patients and their clients to actually take accountability of their own health. And that's what I love about SaunaSpace. And I do want to get onto the details of detox and circle back there, Brian, because I think you've given us a good overview of the science about how important that is. I think it's one of the most important sort of attributes or characteristics of, your sauna, your tungsten sort of your picture on your website in terms of the different wavelengths of red light, of near infrared, of mid infrared, I think is incredible. I think people need to hear more about that. I'm excited about it, but I want to hear from you. I've been using bentonite clay. I've been using activated charcoal. I've been using chlorella. I've been using a lot of these binders that have spirulina, that have significant research out there. Been using niacin as well, especially if I've got a long, sauna on the weekend. Let's circle back a little bit on detox, because I'd love to hear from you. My experience is when I'm doing a 45-minute SaunaSpace sauna and I'm going to sweat significantly, I'm going to be using these binders before. What is SaunaSpace's take on that? What is your personal experience? I'd love to hear, since we last spoke, about using supplementation with the sauna.
Yeah, I look, at the end of the day, probably SaunaSpace is the most accessible, most tolerable, most gentle way to do detoxification. And I think the light therapy aspect is really helping very uniquely in making that as easy as possible on the body. But detoxification is a necessarily stressful activity. You have toxins that are released into the bloodstream, and then you're sweating, and you're trying to eliminate those by sweat as much as possible. But some will go to the kidneys, some will go to the bowels, some will be reabsorbed. And so you have this concept of detox reactions or healing reactions, wherein you experience a little bit of the symptoms of the toxicity of what is being detoxed. And it's certainly always better to get it out than it was to leave it in there. But what can we do to support the body in other ways once we get out of the sauna? Number one for me is using the exfoliating brush in the shower. Actually, afterward, as I'm rinsing off my sweat, I'm activating lymphatic system, which is helping move those toxins along to the organs of elimination. So,
and as of yesterday, we're now shipping a shower brush with every one of our sauna purchases.
Yeah, I just decided, Steve, it was so important. Let's just put it in there, because it's a thing that people don't think about, and I don't think about how religiously I do that. There's never a sauna session where I don't bristle off in the shower afterwards. So that's an easy key thing to do. That's not supplement based. It's just a mechanical thing. And you're already
okay. Let me stop you there, Brian, because I think it's important. Because this is what I'm doing after my sauna. Is your incredible new. I think it's a teal brush. It's a fantastic brush. It takes getting used to, the one that you sent me. But I'm doing dry brushing after the sauna. Is that something I should be doing in the sauna? I've obviously got my own brush in the sauna, but I want to distill it and deconstruct it so that people listening can say, you know what, I take my supplements before, I get in the sauna for so long, I then use the brush before, which is what I'm doing, which I feel incredible after that brush. It's taken a while to get used to. It's quite a hard bugger. But and then I've got a brush in the shower. So give us your, when Brian Richards does sauna, give us your process, especially the longer saunas, because I do want to hear about zeolite, possibly bentonite clay. I want to talk about your experience. You've been in the game, the Terry Walls of the world, the Joseph McCulloughs. These people are using your product. They extremely well-known and accomplished physicians. Tell us about your sort of process and program. I think it's important. I'll make my comments there.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So for me, it's all about efficiency of time, because I have no time. When I'm done working, I'm with my family, and that's the most important thing for me in the world. So like the only time I have for my sauna is in the morning before my kids wake up and before I have to go to work. So I roll out of bed at 5:30 or 6, and I get in the sauna, towel on the stool, towel on the floor, no preheating, nothing. I just turn it on. I will admit
Beautiful.
that sometimes I bring a Kindle in and I read my book on my Kindle. It's in airplane mode. It just depends on how I'm feeling that morning, but certainly other mornings I go in there with nothing, which is something that it takes a minute to get used to. But I get in there, no preheating, all 4 lights on, and I start my session. And I do the 5-minute rotation more or less. My daily session, though, Steve, is usually only 25 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But then I start just feeling the need to get going, get to work. So, but what I do is I do that every day, and I insist on doing that every day that I'm at my house, even on the weekend now, when I have no work in the day, and I finally get to sleep in a little bit, and maybe we're going to go out for pancakes with the kids. I still make sure to wake up early and do that no matter what, because it's only 20 or 25 minutes. I mean, by the time you sit down and have a coffee and check your email or something, 25 minutes has gone past, and why not do that? So I've been doing that for many years, but certainly since the pandemic started, I've been really disciplined and insistent, and no matter what, doing that, even on the weekend. So if I'm in town, I'm doing that. So I'm only doing 20 to 25 minutes. But anyway, my routine is get in there, I do my session. Lately I've been doing, when I don't have the Kindle and I'm not reading, is just doing basic breath work. Just basic, focusing on my breathing, doing deep inhalation and exhalation, trying to get into that, and through the breath work, achieve that sort of quasi-meditative state where I'm present. And so I'm doing one or the other, but I'm doing that every day in the morning. And when I'm done, after 20 minutes even, I'm really sweaty. After 25 minutes, I'm just totally drenched. And I got at least my minimum of what I feel I've got my session done. At the minimum that I absolutely need for myself. And I get out and I get into the shower, and I actually, when I get out, I grab the towel off the stool and I leave the lights on, and then I get in the shower, and in the shower I bristle brush off, like I described with our exfoliating brush. You can use any brush you want. Our brush is pretty cool. It's a little aggressive, but that you start to get used to it. And those of you that are especially the dry brushing it feels even more aggressive than the wet brushing. It feels like you're ripping your skin off the first time you do it. It's what the hell am I doing? What is this torture therapy? But then you do it again, and it's kind of stimulating in a way. It's kind of like a massage. The first time, it's wow, that's a little bit too aggressive, that massage. But then you start to get used to it, and you find your body responds to it, becomes more accustomed to it. You become a little bit more tolerant of it. And so I always insist on scrubbing off everything. And people always forget their scalp and their face. Do your scalp, do your face, behind your ears, everything. And then I only soap off my nether regions, my armpits and my other nether regions. I don't actually lather soap on my whole body because I don't want to remove the skin oils. And I think that adversely affects the structured water and your communication level with the world around you. So I'm a light soaper type of guy, and I probably only shampoo every 3 days my hair, but I do shampoo. Anyway, that's my morning routine. But then I get out and I go to work, and sometimes if I'm feeling funny or I'm feeling like I need it, I take chlorella. My biggest binder that I take is chlorella. I usually take, there's a certain brand I take that Dr. Mercola recommends, and Brian Hoyerfield, the Healing, also recommends. Usually take 6 to 12 tablets of that. I think each tablet's half a gram or something. But I take a lot of it. And then always when I get to work, the first thing I eat is actually my butter coffee. And I have a little special blend of butter coffee that's butter, coconut oil, and my special organic purity coffee, turmeric. And I put either lion's mane powder in or 5 Defenders. That's from the Real Mushrooms brand. So every day I'm consuming...
And ceremonial cocoa.
And ceremonial cocoa, I put that in there as well. And then also a scoop of collagen, grass-fed beef collagen. So it's a nice morning breakfast. It's carb-free, keeps me really ketogenic, and it's really synergistic with the sauna. You just feel high on life when you do this. You don't have any brain fog or mental fog or any kind of heaviness, like you need to take a nap or something. It's fuel for the brain. It's fuel for the body. And the mushroom thing, I think, is a really important thing that people are starting to understand more and more. And there's different brands out there, but I really like real mushrooms because it's the fruiting bodies. And I really like using lion's mane more than anything. Those of you who aren't familiar, it's its own kind of brain fuel, its own brain food. I can feel when I take lion's mane that it just gives you that little extra edge, the mental acuity. It's fascinating how it does it, and so that's kind of my mainstay that I've been doing that for years, every morning.
My personal favorite is the cordyceps. I also add cordyceps to mine.
Yeah,
and that gives you, because I have trouble with energy levels sometimes, and so that just like makes me feel even more awake than usual. So I just really enjoy the cordyceps. Plus, it's got a really nice deep bitter flavor.
They're all adaptogens, and you find they're all good for you. You just find the one you like. But for me, it's so key to fuel the body with this light therapy that's having its own amazing healing effect. It actually gives your cells energy, and then synergistically going in and having, for me, this carb-free keto meal that has the protein and the fat in it, and the coffee, because that's my drug of choice. Okay, I drink coffee, a lot of it, but that takes me to like 1 or 2 p.m. where that's all I have, and I have that every morning, and I'm just like on fire in the morning, getting so many things done. My mental recall, ability to shift and do non-routine tasks, which is interesting. There's some interesting research on using near-infrared light and photobiomodulation and the benefit it has to improvement in doing like random non-routine tasks and things you're not used to. So, and we know that there's a cognitive benefit to the light therapy, and we know there's a cognitive benefit slowly over time to the sauna therapy. So I'm rolling that into the brain fuel of the fat coffee, the butter coffee, and putting the mushrooms in there. And I do that every day, 5 days a week, no matter what. I don't drink the butter coffee on the weekends because I'm not at work, but I do that every day, and I find that it's just such an amazing blend of things. And the other thing it does, that morning butter coffee, is it takes care of my morning breakfast. I'm not eating a croissant. I'm not eating fast food. I'm not eating anything heavy. And it's a meal, Steve, that you can make in about 5 minutes. So for those of you here, if you're a coffee drinker, I highly recommend you try this because it takes care of it takes care of one of your meals a day. It's really healthy. And it kind of sets you up for the most optimal flow state that you could be in for what I would consider your most active, sort of most efficient, most getting things done time of the day, which for most people is like in the morning, the afternoon of their workday. So I do that every day.
And you don't feel heavy after a big meal, and that's important from the brain-derived neurotropic factor that you get from the sauna and the light therapy, and you get which is really, really important. So cognitively, I totally agree with you. I find I'm probably in the sauna 6 days a week in the morning, maybe 5 days, and then on the weekend, sometimes afternoons or evenings. I find the evening sauna really helps my sleep data and my REM sleep, my deep sleep. But tell me about your bowel movements, because I think this is important. It might be a bit personal, but I think it's good that people know that, bowel function and having good bowels. I think it was William Osler who said, one of the most important functions are your bowels. And, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, saying let food be your medicine. And even things that are so important in terms of bowel function and passing a stool every day. I tell my clients, one of the greatest biohacking measurables is, are you passing a stool every day? And I think that's crucially important. And let's talk about Brian Richard's bowel movement.
You're on fire, man. I'm so glad you brought that up. So everybody has leaky gut. Everybody has junction cells leaking, and they have proteins leaking into their blood, which affects their brain function. That's why, plasticky, toxic food kind of, for a lot of people, instantly gives you brain fog. So everybody has leaky gut. So when you're sitting in the SaunaSpace sauna, the near-infrared light, one of the indirect effects is inflammatory media production, which would basically immediately results in cellular and tisular reduction and inflammation. And when we're in the sauna and we have the lights, the SaunaSpace lights, like right on the gut for 20 minutes, whether it's the front or the side or the back, rotating, we are, trying to directly to combat one of the most inflamed places I think we commonly have here in the West with the standard American diet, they call it the SAD diet. that most everybody eats, and sometimes even I'm in situations where I eat food that's toxic food because that's all that's available. So we're directly addressing that, and when we do that, I think it also helps absolutely with sort of priming the bowels and the colon and stuff for that ideal daily bowel movement. And I've never had issues with, I've never really had diuretic or constipatory symptoms. I know there's a lot of people who do and have, and I know that they've had a lot of progress using SaunaSpace in general. But what's interesting for me is if I do have a night where I eat some bad stuff at a restaurant, or I go out and have some drinks, and I wake up the next day, I'm maybe a little groggy, stomach feels funny or whatever. When I go in the sauna, after the sauna session, I feel that stuff is corrected, and it does induce a bowel movement. And so I think there's something going on there that's really important, because part of it is people have low enzyme content and they're de-optimized issues in their stomach. They don't have the right stomach acid levels, or they're not creating the right or enough of the certain enzymes in the small intestines to deal with the proteins. But there's also an inflammation issue that's going on that people have due to toxicity. Most of the toxins you get, or many of the toxins you get, are through what you eat and what you drink, and that stuff really collects in your stomach and in your bowels and stuff over time. So you addressing that through using light therapy during the sauna session, where you're also trying to get the whole body to detox, including the intestinal cells, the junction cells, the lining cells of the blood, of the intestines, of the organs. You're trying to detox all of that, and inflammation gets in the way. So
yeah, everything runs much more efficiently. Your whole body runs more efficiently when it's not inflamed. It really
brilliant.
Completely smothers. But
and I think that's really something unique about what we do. All sauna is good. And so people are like, well, I want this sauna, I want that sauna. I like to say, look, all saunas are good. In sauna, those of us in the sauna world shouldn't be really attacking each other or anything, and just we should all be saying, look, any sauna is great. Even any type of hyperthermic therapy is great. It's just that with SaunaSpace, when you use near-infrared light, you couple that at the same time in the same cell, you create this like magical synergy between the light and the heat therapy that makes both of them more effective and better. And so if we're talking about the cell level, you asked me like, well, what's going on in sauna, and how does that detoxify you? Number one thing is when you heat up the cell 3 degrees, you get heat shock protein production. And heat shock proteins directly make cellular detoxification more efficient, number one. But number two, they have a rebuilding effect because they fix misfolded proteins, and they move proteins around and put them in the right places so you have the right concentrations. And they actually go outside of the cell as well and do the same thing on the outside of the cell. And that is linked to improving signaling, whether it's calcium signaling or like insulin signaling and stuff on the outside of the cell. Proteins are sort of the blue collar workers of every aspect of the body. And so the sauna is having a detoxifying effect and an optimizing effect. And it has different interplays too with the light therapy, which the light therapy itself is increasing cellular energy and having a nitric oxide release, which has beneficial immune effects. But then it's all working in conjunction with these reactive oxygen species that are produced to correct your DNA, correct your gene transcription, produce anti-inflammatory mediators, get growth factor things that are produced. And then the heat therapy, aside from the heat shock proteins, like you mentioned, in the nerve cells, increases brain-derived neurotropic factor. That's like miracle grow for your brain. But it also has benefits to, for example, healing us from EMF toxicity. You get vascular shear stress, and then you get BH4 production, tetrahydrobiopterin, which reduces peroxynitrite. And peroxynitrite is an oxidative stress nasty molecule that's produced in general through oxidative stress, but also through EMF stress. And the peroxynitrite cycle has a really nefarious way, slowly, of causing DNA damage, just like X-rays, and just like any sort of ionizing radiation has directly in the cell. So in 3 days, peroxynitrite causes this similar mutations to the DNA as an X-ray would immediately. And so we're getting that from all the cell phone signals, all this other stuff. And so here we have just a few examples of how a sauna therapy and photobiomodulation are doing such a wide array of things that the best way to sum it up is cellular reoptimization. We're going in and making things work better, getting the poisons out, and then correcting all that damage and that malformation and that degradation that happened slowly but surely. And when we talk about cancer and heart disease and things like that, and, you know, I'm not making any medical claims, I'm just referring to the research. But those are diseases that don't pop up overnight, Steve. Those are things that are a result of an accumulation of exposures and habits and lifestyle and choices that happen over time. You just don't wake up and get and develop cancer. It's really, there's this idea actually in terms of cancer, the metabolic theory of cancer, the Beard theory, where you have cancerous cells all the time in your body, and your body's constantly has a tug of war trying to fix and keep and suppress those and produce the good and out with the bad, and so it's a constant battle that's going on. It's not something that happens overnight. So it's something where we need to look at it and look at food as medicine. But there's these other things. There's these biohacks like doing the SaunaSpace sauna, doing light therapy, and some other things that we could talk about too. Where if you want to stay healthy and not take that pharmaceutical conventional approach, the alternative in the natural world, I think it's higher benefit, lower risk, much more cost effective, but it does require a discipline of practice. You know, you have to do it every day, just like every day, or as much as you can anyway. You know, be aware of what you eat and be aware of what is your relationship with light and with EMF and with the sun and
absolutely
around you. It's a daily job.
Well, it's a consistency, you know. It's no point brushing your teeth for 7 hours in one day and not brushing them for 7 weeks. I think consistency is far more important than intensity.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the Thermolite bulb, because this, you know, incandescent bulb, and looking at the spectral irradiance and the wavelengths, and it actually is red light coming from the Thermolite bulb. It's near infrared and mid infrared. So just expand on that, because I think it's important. You know, people are getting saunas now, and they're getting, I think, irradiated by, you know, non-native electromagnetic fields. I mean, yours is just zero EMF, you know, radiation that people are absorbing in the sauna space, which I think is really important. Checked out by Brian Hoyer and Shielded Healing, and I've checked it out myself as a geobiologist. But I do think that's important. The Thermolite bulb is crucial. As people, we're spending so much time indoors, and that's why I say to people, your light diet is crucial. It's as important as your food diet, if not more important. And when you're, you know, behind glass, you know, windows, you're cutting out all your near infrared light. So 41%, you know, of sunlight is not getting to you. That's when UVA and UVB becomes damaging. In fact, UV light is really healthy, but it's got to be in sunlight. It's got to have the counterbalance of red light and infrared light. And so tell us about that. I don't know if there are any studies on how much more we're spending time inside compared to outside, but I tell people that you need to get red light, you need to get near infrared, you need to get mid infrared. Why? Because you're actually deficient in light. You're deficient in the correct wavelengths of light. And so I'm hoping in the future there are going to be significant studies on light diets in terms of how much is your skin and your body absorbing the incorrect light. So maybe you can comment on that, because I think the Thermolite is very important.
Yeah, the Thermolite is a modern recreation of the bonfire. And really the light of nature. We talk about the light of nature. It's full spectrum light. It's really the sun ultimately. But humans have also lived with fire for 30,000 years, and we're accustomed to that. We're accustomed to light after dark being this spectrum. And when we talk about this spectrum, we mean when we say full spectrum light, we're always referring to incandescent light. And the Thermolite bulb is an incandescent bulb. The reason they're called incandescent bulbs, even though it's kind of like a old-fashioned name for the old school light bulb, is that it's an incandescent light source. So in nature, if you heat up a material hot enough, it actually emits light naturally, according to this fancy physics law called Planck's law. And so you can predict the emission of light from a light source based on the temperature it's heated up to. And you can do that with the sun, and then you can measure all the wavelengths of the sun and the power levels that are relative, and you find that they match perfectly with the predicted spectrum. And so what you see is, and you can see it on our website, on our How It Sauna Works page, it's basically this big bell curve with a lot of infrared. And you mentioned it yourself, the largest plurality, so the largest chunk of the sunlight that reaches the earth is near infrared. And if you add red in, which is another 15%, you're talking about over 50% of the sun's light, of the power that reaches the earth, is in this really special band called the red near infrared band that is either stimulating mitochondrial healing in the mitochondria, the power cells, the healers of our body, or it's heating our body radiantly and efficiently from within.
It's also called photobiomodulation for those who are...
Yeah, and photobiomodulation is light controlling biology. That's the root of that word. And really the healing aspect of light controlling biology is all about the mitochondria. It's the little power cells, the power plants in every cell of the body. And to give you guys a perspective, it is in every cell of the body except red blood cells. So in our brain, in our nerves, in our brain cells, in our nerve cells in our brain, we have lots of these little mitochondria that they're deficient in near infrared light. As you say, when you shine near infrared light on them, they heal themselves. And you can actually heal nerve cells and nerve injury, like traumatic brain injury. And we're seeing this in the clinical studies, and look this up on the PubMed. The near infrared light photobiomodulation is being used to ameliorate and heal traumatic brain injury and stroke and recovery from heart attack. And that's because we have these built-in healers in our non-regenerative nerve tissue that actually makes them regenerative, which is a total misnomer in conventional medicine. But what's really trippy is, what's the thickest tissue, the thickest, most dense tissue we have in our bodies are bone tissue. And the thickest bone tissue we have in our body is in our skull. And so how do we get this healing stimulus of this photobiomodulation of near infrared light into our skull? The best way to do it is near infrared light. Even though red light has the same effect on the mitochondria in triggering these healing systems, red light doesn't penetrate deeply. So if you look at the sun, you see there's a much bigger chunk of near infrared than red. And if you look at penetration ability into tissue, the only wavelengths of sunlight that have been shown to penetrate bone tissue are near infrared. So if we're talking about getting healing into our brain, getting the essential daily nutrient dose into our brain of this healing photobiomodulation light, it's got to be primarily near infrared. So that's why with the Thermolite bulb, we designed it and tuned the filament to improve, to increase and emphasize the near infrared spectrum. So we look at the bulb and we see that it's red, but that's just what our eyes see. If we get beyond that and measure with the spectrometer and understand what's really going on, what the most of the wattage coming out is what we don't see, which is near infrared. And there's also a lot of mid infrared as well. But if we're talking about understanding and leveraging this ancestral concept of light diet with the sun and eating the sun and being a light eater, and being this electromagnetic being that actually we absorb this light, and the light that we absorb into our cells triggers chemical changes that are absolutely relevant and essential for our well-being. It's all about the near infrared, man. And so we tune this to have like 2 to 4 times the amount of near infrared emission that a standard incandescent 250 watt heat lamp has. And we developed it over a couple, 4 or 5 years actually. Came out with it 2 years ago, I think. And it's just been a huge resounding success. Just in terms of efficiency of the sauna session, we get more light therapy wavelengths, but we also get more of those radiant penetrating 1,000 to 1,500 nanometer near infrared wavelengths. And what we see is our sauna sessions are just more efficient because we're heating the body up faster.
So for instance, when you used to use the standard heat lamps and the SaunaSpace products, I think we were doing 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes.
When you're well acclimated, yeah, you can do a 35, 40 session, no problem. And Steve,
and then now only doing 20 to 25 minutes.
I just don't need that much. And the other thing is I used to have to preheat and get it nice and warm inside. And now we don't need to do that anymore. And that's a big misunderstanding people have. They look at the SaunaSpace sauna and they think, well, it's a cloth tent. The enclosure is just 2 layers of cloth. How can you achieve this sweaty sauna session response? That's the goal of it. And the answer is, it does insulate pretty well, the cloth, but the answer is really in the way we heat the body up. We don't use the air to heat the body up. We use what's called radiant heating. So we heat the body from within. Near-infrared wavelengths penetrate 4 to 5 inches into the body. And you'll find that without any preheating, going in a SaunaSpace sauna, and you can measure this yourself, Steve. Actually, I challenge you to do so if you haven't done it. You can use an infrared ear thermometer, and you can measure as you progress through the SaunaSpace sauna session your rise in your core body temperature. And you'll find it only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to get up to 2 or 3 degrees increase, which results in sweating, and then another 10 minutes, and you're good. And if you compare that to a Finnish sauna, where you're using the hot air around you to heat you up, or also a far-infrared sauna, which is still, because far-infrared wavelengths don't penetrate deeply into tissue, you still are basically relying on the air to heat you up. It takes 30 minutes or more just to achieve that core temperature increase. So we're doing it in the amount of time.
Exactly.
It's more efficient, and all of that is was great. But when we had the standard heat lamp, but now that we have the Thermolite, it's just even better. And for those of you also, I should say, who are wondering, well, maybe it's too intense. It's a really interesting thing. With SaunaSpace, we're heating the body up more efficiently and more quickly, but it's not really a more intense therapy than a wet sauna is. In fact, if you try a wet sauna, a lot of people find that to be a little bit claustrophobic inducing. It's wet, the air is 180 degrees, it's humid. For people who have chronic illness and heat sensitivity or dealing with autoimmune stuff, they often struggle to use that type of sauna because it's the environment is too intense. With this, the environment is gentle. The air temperature is lower and comfortable, more 115 degrees, 120. And the light therapy is heating you efficiently, but it's like a simulating good feeling heat. It's not an overwhelming, stressful type of heat.
Yeah, I often say it's much more like the feeling you get when you go lay out on the beach and just the sun is shining on you.
Absolutely.
That comfortable warmth. That's what you get inside of our sauna.
Great, Brian. I want to jump into athletic performance because, this SaunaSpace is my number one general, most important biohack. I think it's, what you've said, it's just comfortable. You can change the number of globes in the sauna, which is fantastic. I get a lot of questions from the community about recovery and repair. I found it's been incredible after my gym session. I'm in the sauna in the morning. It's really beneficial. There's a lot of research showing that you should do sauna before your exercise. I'm sure you've got a lot of feedback in terms of how important it is for recovery and repair in terms of getting in the sauna. My general sauna sessions in the week are 20, 25 minutes. I'm generally just dripping, totally, just absolutely wet, which is incredible. And the longest sessions are on the weekend, which is buckets of sweat. But tell us about athletic performance, repair, and recovery with the sauna.
Yeah.
And we've already hit the hour mark, so we'll want to be conscious on winding this up. But
so we'll wind up with this. But this is such an important topic. Number one, HRV. So when you're done with the sauna session, and this is pretty recent research, you get a huge HRV increase. And those of you who are athletes out there and understand that, that's one of the most important indicators of health optimization and your ability to adapt and react to your environment. And those of you who are top performers in the athletic world, how much you're willing to sacrifice and pay for some HRV improvement. You get that really powerful improvement in your HRV after every sauna session. So number one, it's an amazing HRV booster, and so that's the difference between the inhalation and exhalation heart rate. It's tied to the vagus nerve. It's used as a biomarker now for like how healthy you are. We don't have enough time to talk about that, but you get a huge HRV boost using sauna. So you definitely want to consider that. Also, when we work out, we have lactic acid. We have this toxin in our muscle cells. We want to detox that. So sauna obviously is amazing for that recovery after the workout. And we know that light therapy and sauna in different ways, especially light therapy, accelerates wound and muscle healing. And we're talking about the micro muscle tears. When you work out really vigorously, you get these little tears in your muscle tissue. So the recovery after the workout is amazing. And so we definitely recommend you use the sauna typically after a workout if you're doing a really intense, high intensity workout. but there's also other benefits. When you use sauna over time, you heat temper the body. You increase your heat tolerance such that, you know, if I'm a soccer player, I'm playing out in Las Vegas and it's 100 degrees outside, I have more tolerance to that hot, intense environment because I'm tempering my body routinely with this sauna therapy. So it makes you more resilient, and it improves your endurance in general, as well as your endurance under hot, humid conditions. But I would say most important thing for athletes is the sort of long-term improvements in how your brain works that you get from sauna therapy and from light therapy. We touched on it a little bit earlier, some of the cellular benefits, but we do see that in the sauna studies and also the photobiomodulation studies as well. You get improvements in recall, in decision making, and we call that in general improved cognitive functioning. And so there's different research in sauna and for light therapy, but for both of those things, that's really the cutting edge that I think you look for most as an athlete. You know, the athletes are out there, they're training their body, they're doing those specific workouts and things for their sport, for whatever they're doing. But what gives you that extra 5%, that extra 10%, even maybe that extra 1% cutting edge that you need? It's in the brain and in the nervous system. And we're talking about reactiveness and all the other things that I mentioned. That's probably the most amazing thing that you get. And that really applies to everything. You know, we talk about athletes. I'm not an athlete, but I want my brain to work better. I want my recall to be better. I want to be able to look at, you know, that whole crazy right brain concept that humans uniquely have, where we walk into an environment and there's 1,000 data points and we can make a decision like that and make the right decision based on, it's not a left brain thing. It's not like understanding all the facts. It's like just absorbing all of it and just making this kind of leap of faith and having that be the right decision and having that response time be minimized is invaluable. You know, you can't place money on that, whether you're walking into an argument with your wife or you know, whatever. You have some, you know, our world is full of conflicts, you know, in personnel conflicts at work, conflicts at the grocery store, and especially nowadays, everybody's like, you know, there's a lot of social antagonism going on for many reasons. And so being able to go in there and be calm and collected and do the right thing the first time, that's invaluable.
Yeah, fantastic. And, you know, I regard SaunaSpace as part of my community. The pillar of community at Made to Thrive is so important. It's one of our internal drivers as we serve our different communities, our mentors, our coaches, our friends, our families, our very special communities in our life. And I'm really happy to be surrounded by SaunaSpace because you guys are incredible. Service and the product is fantastic. I use mine on every single day in terms of my photon here, and then at least 6 days a week at home. So what a community you guys are. I salute you. I celebrate you guys. I'd love to do this again because I got so many questions on my pad here, and I know Crystal's itching. You know, she's itching with the hour, but that's fine. I think there's been a lot of information. One area which has been incredible is I do the sauna before I go out into the sun. If I'm going to go lie in the sun on my lilo in the pool, I don't get burnt. And obviously, we can talk about mitochondria again in depth in terms of those chromophores at those different complexes from 1 to 5. But that light is so important. And when you then expose yourself to the UVA and UVB, you actually, you know, you develop what we call a solar callus. And this solar callus is so important for people not to burn, which is obviously the last thing we want, you know, clients and people to burn. But it's so profound in terms of getting this light. Even if it's 5-10 minutes I sit in the sauna before I go out in the day on a hot summer's day where the UV index is high, it's incredible. And it prevents burns and prevents those carcinogens from developing if people overexpose themselves to the sun. So I just want to thank SaunaSpace, and you've been extremely generous, and I'm trusting that this flies in Africa. And the reason I was peppering you with questions, young Brian Richards, because you're looking extremely young after all these years. I know you say you're under a lot of pressure, but you're looking well. Is that, you know, I think it's just imperative, you know, just like Bill, you know, Gates said, he visions a computer in every single home. I'm envisioning an incandescent sauna space in every single home because I think it's that important in terms as we try and navigate this crazy, chaotic world where You know, there's just so many toxins out there, so many insults on our body, from the electromagnetic radiation to the toxicity in our food and our water and our air. So thank you so much, Crystal. You've been incredible as well. So I love you guys.
Steve, thank you so much for the high five. Let's just have you on again, because we need to talk about sun callus. We need to talk about photoprotective effects of near-infrared.
We did make a promise on Tuesday that we were going to show them that EMF tent. I don't know if you would like to stick around for that, Steve, but we should run down really quick.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to go mobile, so we'll finish up with that. But we're going to have Steve on again, because we also
I'll reach out to you right after.
We didn't talk enough about junk light and these different exposures to synthetic light and how that is in our modern environment. It's one of these other things that's nasty. That's what I love about that conversation with the solar callus, is it doesn't just apply to ultraviolet light, it also applies to blue light. So the SaunaSpace session in the morning is a great way to kind of galvanize and protect yourself from all this terrible junk light that we have indoors as we work in front of the computer all day.
Yeah.
So we'll come back. Brilliant. We'll talk about all that stuff again with you, Steve, before the end of the year. We'll have you on again.
Brilliant.
But you're right.
And we did have a couple of questions, which we'll, I took a screenshot of. Join us next time and we can answer them.
We'll answer it on the way.
So long.
But we can maybe answer it on the way.
Okay, great.
So, Michael, you ready?
Yep.
So first, from yours truly, Julie, we had, she wanted to know, does the sauna have the ability to detox from pharmaceuticals and drugs?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we talked about, is that sauna's been shown to be sweaty. Passive sweating has been shown to be so effective in detoxifying from petrochemicals. So that's something that maybe people don't understand so well. Pharmaceutical drugs are almost entirely made from petroleum. They're made from gasoline, basically. So pharmaceuticals is just one of petrochemicals in general. And so we're seeing that. And you also see that in our customer reviews, and also sort of in the research as well. We have customers who have healing reactions due to detoxification of antibiotics from their liver. They have residues of antibiotics in their liver that they can detoxify from. Also, we have customers who report tasting gadolinium, which is I think it's gadolinium. It's that metal that's used for MRIs to help the body map, and so you can taste it on. We've had customers report tasting this metallic taste on their tongue after a sauna session, and there's a couple customers who are actually doing blood testing and reported that was basically gadolinium that was coming out. So
that's interesting. That's similar to my experience when I first started detoxing in the sauna. I actually did taste metal in my mouth also, and it was in my sweat. You know, that first 2 or 3 weeks.
So yeah, I think there's a strong case to be made for the ability of sauna to detoxify from pharmaceuticals and drugs and things like that in general. But certainly look at the research yourself. I'm just like a curious man. So enough of that sciencey stuff. Let's check out some industrial design stuff. We're going to check out this new EMF-free experience tent that we're bringing to the biohacking conference next week.
And the other question was, how does the SaunaSpace red light therapy differentiate from other red light therapies? So
we're
kind of a big question.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to hit that one next time.
We'll hold that question off for next time. Steve off?
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I'm glad you came. We'll have you on again. Just a real quick taste, just 30 seconds. Oh my God, this looks so gorgeous. So it's not even done yet, but we're getting there. We're getting so close. So this is the new, but let's go check out the old real quick. So I showed you guys this last week. This is the old Pirate Tate tent we brought to Paleo Effects many years ago, made it for Tate Flesher, Pirate Life Radio. You can actually, I did a podcast with him. I think we might actually have that in the beginning of our Instagram feed. So we took this concept, but we wanted to make the whole thing an EMF-free experience for this new show. So we took the sort of the industrial design approach. It uses our fitting technology that we developed, one of our core technologies that dates back a long time ago, to our custom-made bamboo mat concept, to just all of it. And we took that and we did a
huge refresh. So come over here. And here we have
And
it
this
built
gentleman
in person.
here is Rusty.
And we also have Rusty.
He is,
Sort of head of design here, big design guy, my design partner, working in the back, kind of in the weeds. You don't get to see him so much, but super amazing guy. He's pretty much single-handedly responsible for making this happen on time, on budget, just in time, and we're only like 48 hours out from shipping the crate out, so thank God. So here we have here, so what we see here is we took the fittings, we're making them in our stone now for beauty. We remade the mat with our new toasted bamboo, and it's grounding mat just like the sauna. So it has a conductive material inside, just like the SaunaSpace sauna mat that's grounded, that will be grounded to the wall ground. So this is a grounding mat I'm standing on. But as I go inside, you see the coup de grace is this covering that we're putting on it. So we have a hat to the tent that's lined with our EMF blocking fabric. And then on the sides, we have slowly constructed here, again, our EMF blocking fabric. So once this is all done and finished and set up, we're going to design, we've got a curtain that we got going, and that'll be closed. So when you walk in here, and there will be no cell phones allowed, and no transmitting devices of any kind, you'll be able to walk in here and experience what it really means to be EMF free. And for many people, probably the first time ever in their whole life, or since they were like really young, and depending on their age, maybe never. And it's huge, so it's 10 feet wide, it's super tall. We're definitely going to have some photons lit up here so you can see it. Thank you, Rusty, for setting that up to give you guys kind of the effect. But basically at the show, we're going to have some floor seats and some photons, and you're going to come in here and you're going to hang out old school. There'll be a deck of cards, there'll be some backgammon, we'll have some
we bought
drinks.
these memory foam gaming chairs, and they are
Yeah.
phenomenal.
They're really
You're going to
comfy.
want to take a nap.
So we're going to do those things that we used to do before we had all these tablets and devices and things that we stuff our face in. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to get to know you. So those of you who are at all anywhere near or considering it, the Biohacking Conference next week, it's going to be killer. It's going to be amazing. It's 3 days long. We'll have this set up the entire time for anyone who attends the conference to try whatever and however they want. And like everything else, custom made by SaunaSpace from the ground up. This thing looks so amazing.
And what
Rusty.
about these things? Have you talked about those?
We mentioned that. Okay, well,
There's one right there.
so we showed this for about 2 seconds last week. So this is a new technology that's coming out from SaunaSpace sometime soon, and it's basically a way of making our sauna even more portable. So more to come with that later. We don't have any disclosure date yet set or release date yet set, but we wanted to showcase the technology in the EMF-free experience tent. So every one of the poles has this new stainless steel connector design that allows them to disconnect in half for more convenient transportation. And that's it. That's all.
Oh my gosh, so long.
We'll be back next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Central. Please join us, and we're gonna have a lot of cool links in the comments because we've talked about some amazing stuff today with Steve.
Yes, and I'll reach out and get him back on as soon as we can.
Yeah, those of you who are based in
Don't know
Africa,
about that.
Steve is our wholesaler in South Africa. He does inventory of the product, so you can reach out to him to try out and get what we have a lot more close to you than where we are right here in Columbia, Missouri. Anyway, everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.